Hello everyone, today I'm back to continue sharing with you the story of Tiểu San, the single mother. I hope you all enjoy the video. Tiểu San slowly learned how to breathe again after the days when she thought she could no longer stand on her own. The pain of losing her child was still there, deep and cold, but thanks to little Ivy, a tiny yet resilient ray of light, she began to find the rhythm of life she once lost. Every time she heard the child's soft laughter, something inside her eased, as if someone gently touched the wound still aching within her. And from that, she understood she could not remain in the darkness forever. As her emotions gradually steadied, Tiểu San returned to work, using it as a way to find peace in her mind. Keeping busy helped her focus and eased the emptiness inside. Though her first steps back were slow and hesitant, each passing day brought a little more strength back to her. One evening, Tiểu San quietly spoke to Hai's mother, asking for permission to return to her old home. She said she needed to learn how to stand up on her own again, needed to face the memories in order to truly let go. Hai's mother looked at her for a long moment, eyes filled with both worry and affection, but in the end, she gently nodded. That decision lifted a weight from Tiểu San's heart, as if she had finally chosen the direction she wanted to walk, despite not knowing what lay ahead. Tiểu San returned to her little house on a sunny afternoon. The familiar space made her chest tighten, warm, yet slightly suffocating. She placed her hand lightly on the door, took a deep breath, and stepped inside, as if whispering to herself that things would be all right. In the days that followed, she resumed a simple routine, making breakfast, checking work, and spending the rest of her time on the small, ordinary things she once neglected. The tiny garden behind the house became her refuge whenever her heart needed gentleness. She rolled up her sleeves and cleaned away old leaves, pulled weeds left from the previous season. The soil beneath her fingers was soft and cool, its familiar scent soothing her spirit. She began planting a few rows of vegetables, imagining them growing green and strong, like her hope returning bit by bit. Ivy was absolutely delighted. The little girl ran around the garden with her puppy, her laughter drifting through the air like a soft breeze. Every so often, she paused her play and ran to Tiểu San, asking innocent questions with wide, sparkling eyes, questions that made Tiểu San smile without even realizing it. She gently brushed dirt from Ivy's face and answered every question with patient affection. Neither of them said it out loud, but both felt it. This little house was slowly being filled with a warm, quiet light, nothing too bright, but steady, like the tiny sprouts pushing up through the soft soil. While the two were still busy in the garden scented with fresh earth, the small gate clicked open. Tiểu San looked up and saw Hai walking in, carrying 2 bags. He smiled, simple, but with warmth in his eyes. He brought Ivy her favorite milk and a bag of fresh fruit he carefully chose for Tiểu San. "I was passing by and thought I'd get something for you and Ivy," he said softly, sincerity in every word. Tiểu San hesitated a little but accepted it, her chest warming in a way she couldn't quite name. Before the adults could say anything more, Ivy squealed with joy and ran straight to him. She jumped into Hai's arms, as if she hadn't seen him in ages. "Uncle Hai. I planted flowers. Come look," she chirped, eyes shining like sunlight. Hai laughed, lifting her up and spinning her gently, her giggles ringing through the garden. Watching them, Tiểu San smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in a long while. The sound of Ivy's laughter and Hai's warm voice filled the small courtyard, creating a peace she hadn't felt in ages. In that moment, Tiểu San realized that not only was her home slowly coming back to life, her heart was too. Seeing Tiểu San and Ivy still struggling with the leaves and soil trays, Hai rolled up his sleeves and joined in. "Let me help," he said casually, already bending down to work. The garden grew lively at once. Ivy excitedly showed Hai the rows of vegetables, ran back to ask her mother questions, and then dashed off again. Hai laughed as he worked, giving small bits of advice here and there, while Tiểu San noticed she was smiling far more than she had in months. Together, they planted, cleaned, and organized the small garden. Sunlight filtered through the branches, painting warm streaks across their hair. Time seemed to slow down under that gentle glow, and warmth bloomed quietly in Tiểu San's chest. Perhaps moments as simple as these were the happiness she once lost, small, gentle pieces that soothed old wounds and helped her stop dwelling on the pain. Ivy's laughter rang out, Hai joked as he worked, and Tieu San simply watched them with a quiet smile, as if she had finally found her way back to the peaceful life she once cherished. When most of the garden was done, Hai's eyes fell on an empty patch of soil by the fence. Wild grass swayed in the breeze, looking untouched yet full of potential. He spoke up. San, how about we make a little flower garden here? Ivy could play here, and it'd brighten up the house. Tieu San followed his gaze, surprised. She had never paid attention to that spot, but now that he mentioned it, it seemed perfect. The idea stirred something small and hopeful in her. That sounds nice, she said softly. Flowers would make the yard brighter. Ivy gasped with excitement, grabbing both of their hands. I want pink roses. And white flowers. And purple ones too. Hai laughed and patted her head. Then this garden will be Ivy's project. They planned together, measuring, choosing flower types, deciding which needed sun and which needed shade. Hai suggested lining the path with daisies, Tieu San wanted lavender for its calming scent, Ivy simply declared she wanted all the pretty ones, making both adults chuckle. As they discussed the design, a spark of excitement flickered in Tieu San, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Creating a new garden felt like planting new hope, opening a bright corner in a life she once believed had only pain left. Hai occasionally glanced at her with a quiet softness, as if he could see her heart mending. Under the warm afternoon light, the three of them stood in a messy garden, but within each heart, something gentle was beginning to grow. The next morning, when sunlight had just touched the yard, Tieu San opened the door and found Hai already waiting at the gate with a box of seedlings. He looked neat, almost excited. Ivy heard his voice and sprinted out with her tiny bucket, ready to work. I bought the flowers we talked about, Hai said, showing her the box. Inside were lavender plants, budding roses, clusters of bright daisies, everything chosen with such care that Tieu San felt her breath catch. You're so thoughtful, she whispered. He smiled. It's our first garden together. It has to be beautiful. And so they began. Hai dug the soil and shaped the rows, Tieu San gently planted each flower exactly as they planned. Ivy watered everything, splattering more water on herself than the plants, but her joy made both adults laugh. The garden filled with laughter and warm sunlight. Whenever Hai joked, Ivy burst into giggles. Sometimes Tieu San looked up and caught Hai watching her, warmly, quietly, patiently. Let me handle the heavy work, he told her. It's okay, I can do it. I know you can. But since I'm here, let me make it easier. A simple sentence, yet it made Tieu San's heart tighten, not with pain, but with the soft ache of feeling supported after so long. By afternoon, the flower garden took shape. Fresh soil, neat rows, faint scents drifting in the breeze. Ivy ran circles around it, declaring, it's the most beautiful garden in the world. Tieu San looked at the garden, then at Hai wiping sweat from his forehead. A quiet peace filled her. It wasn't just the garden blooming, her life was blooming again too. When the work was done, sunset cast a warm gold across the yard. Tieu San brushed the dirt off her hands just as Hai fixed the last flower stake. His focused expression made her smile. We're done. Let's wash up and eat dinner, she said gently. Hai nodded, picked up the dirt-covered ivy, and the three headed into the cozy kitchen. Tieu San took out vegetables while Hai, without needing to be asked, rolled up his sleeves and helped wash and chop. Are you good at cooking? She asked while lighting the stove. He grinned. Good or not, I won't let you and Ivy go hungry. His tone made the room feel warmer. Ivy sat on her little chair, feet swinging, boasting about how her garden is the prettiest in the world. She told Hai about a butterfly, a worm, and how she almost watered her mom by accident. Hai laughed, Tieu San felt her heart soften. The kitchen filled with the sounds of chopping, running water, and Ivy's cheerful voice, sounds of a peaceful life Tieu San had long forgotten. When they sat for dinner, Hai placed a small piece of fish on Ivy's plate. Eat slowly, don't choke, he said. Ivy nodded earnestly, making Tieu San laugh. The meal felt so natural, so warm, that Tieu San sometimes forgot Hai wasn't someone who had always belonged in this home. Mid-meal, Hai asked gently. Were you tired today? Fixing up the garden must have been hard. Tieu San shook her head softly. Not really. It's been a long time since I felt this light. Gardening, and having someone beside me, it feels different. Hai didn't answer, he only smiled. A deep, thoughtful smile, carrying things he wasn't ready to say aloud. Outside, the evening breeze carried the scent of soil and freshly planted flowers. Inside, the warm light wrapped around the three of them, forming a scene so peaceful that Tieu San felt her heart tighten, not from sorrow, but from a quiet, tender happiness. And she suddenly realized. Perhaps, this was the life she had always longed to reach. Dinner ended, and Ivy, exhausted after a long day of running around, fell asleep right on her chair. Tieu San gently carried her into the bedroom, tucked her in carefully, and closed the door softly. When she stepped back out, Hai was standing on the porch, one hand resting lightly on the railing, his gaze fixed on the newly finished garden. The warm yellow light cast a soft glow on his face, making his gentle expression even more striking. Tieu San walked over and stood beside him. No one spoke for a few seconds, but the silence wasn't heavy, it was tender, like a shared breath after a long day. At last, Tieu San spoke first, her voice quiet but sincere. Thank you, for everything today. And, for everything before this too. Without you, I don't think I could have gotten through it. Hai turned to her, his eyes calm and deep. He shook his head softly. San, you don't owe me anything. I just want to be here when you need someone. I want to take care of you and Ivy, not out of obligation, but because I truly want to. His words hit her heart with surprising force. She lowered her gaze, her fingers tangling together as if afraid he could see through all the things she still hadn't dared to face. I used to be afraid of relying on anyone, she whispered. But lately, you make me feel safe in a way I thought I'd never feel again. Hearing that, Hai stepped closer, slow, steady, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. But Tieu San didn't move. And in that moment, she let herself open up. Hai wrapped her in a slow, warm embrace, one so comforting that the empty spaces inside her seemed to finally fill. Tieu San melted into it, into the warmth she had been missing for far too long. The world around them grew quiet, filled only with the soft rustle of the wind and the faint scent of flowers from their newborn garden. Tieu San gently rested her head against his chest. I really am grateful that you're here. Hai tightened his hold just a little. And I'll keep being here, if you'll allow me. Above them, stars shimmered faint and distant, sprinkling soft light over the garden still smelling of fresh soil. Everything felt wrapped in peace and affection, a moment the two of them would likely never forget. The next morning. As the first pale rays of dawn brushed across the rooftop, the doorbell rang softly. Tieu San opened the door, her hair still slightly tousled from waking up early, but Hai's bright smile made her instantly more awake. He stood there in a light-colored shirt, holding a steaming cup of hot coffee and a small milk box for Ivy. Good morning, he said with cheerful energy. Ready for a fun day out? Before Tieu San could reply, Ivy burst out of the house like a little gust of wind, wrapping herself around Hai's leg. Uncle Hai. We really get to go out today? Hai picked her up and spun her lightly. Of course. Anywhere you want. Ivy giggled, kicking her little feet excitedly. Tieu San watched them, her heart softening, everything felt so warm she swore the whole house lit up. The three locked the door and got into the car. Ivy sat in the back with her tiny pillow, and the entire ride she talked non-stop about. The flower garden yesterday. The yellow butterfly. And the super big worm she saw. Hai drove while occasionally turning to answer her questions, his voice full of patience and affection, so much that Tieu San couldn't stop smiling. The car was filled with Ivy's laughter, and for the first time in many months, Tieu San felt truly light again. When they reached the mall, Hai naturally held Ivy's hand, while his other hand brushed gently against Tieu San's elbow, a small protective gesture. He led them into a large fashion boutique, soft lighting, elegant decor, warm atmosphere. "San, try this," he said, picking out a cream-colored dress. "It really suits you." Tieu San accepted it shyly. No one had chosen clothes for her in a long time. Inside the fitting room, she looked at herself in the mirror and froze a little. She looked softer, more radiant than she expected. When she stepped out, Hai turned with Ivy in his arms. His eyes paused for a few seconds. "You look beautiful," he said simply, but the honesty in his voice made her heart pound. Ivy clapped her hands. "Mommy looks like a princess." Their laughter echoed warmly. Hai then picked out adorable outfits for Ivy, floral dresses, tiny overalls, colorful socks. Every time Ivy tried something new, she twirled in front of the mirror, making Hai laugh and making Tieu San's heart fill with a tender, inexplicable warmth. After shopping, Hai brought them to the mall's play area. Music played cheerfully, lights sparkled, and Ivy lit up instantly when she saw the giant ball pit. "I want to play this. I want to play this." Hai laughed. "Alright, let's go play." He took off his shoes and followed Ivy into the sea of colorful balls. Watching a tall man chased around by a tiny girl was both hilarious and touching. Ivy slid down slides, dove into the balls, and even dragged Hai into a bubble gun battle. Hai never once looked tired. In fact, he kept pretending to lose just to make Ivy laugh louder. Tieu San stood outside holding her bag, her gaze softening more and more. That scene looked like a little family. A family she once believed she would never have again. When Hai finally carried Ivy out, sweat dotting his forehead, he was still smiling. "My little princess is amazing. You won every game." Ivy hugged his neck. "Tomorrow we play again, okay, Uncle Hai?" Hai glanced at Tieu San and smiled. "If your mom agrees, then we can play every day." Their eyes met, soft, warm, shimmering with unspoken feelings. And that was the moment Tieu San realized. Beside Hai, she truly felt safe. After playing their hearts out, the three left the play area starving. Hai checked the time and said gently, "I made lunch reservations. Today, I want to take you both somewhere a little special." Tieu San didn't question it and followed. But when they stopped in front of the restaurant, she froze. It was a European-style place with soft golden lights, elegant staff uniforms, and a faint hint of wine drifting out. Tieu San hesitated, her hand tightening around her bag. "This place seems a bit too fancy." Hai smiled and placed a reassuring hand on her back. "It's okay. Just relax. Today, let me take care of everything." Those simple words softened her heart. She nodded and stepped inside. Inside, the lights were gentle, the atmosphere warm, and soft piano music filled the room. They were seated near a large window overlooking the lively square below. Ivy's eyes sparkled in awe. "Mommy, it's so pretty." Tieu San laughed, but quickly grew shy as she saw the neatly arranged utensils, knives, forks, wine glasses, everything so formal. She didn't know where to place her hands. Hai noticed instantly. He pulled his chair closer, speaking softly, just for her. "Let me show you." Her cheeks warmed, but she nodded. Hai lifted each utensil slowly. "This is the main knife, this is the salad fork, and this one is for dessert. You don't have to remember everything, I'll remind you." He placed them gently into her hands, guiding her slowly on how to hold and how to set them down properly. His fingers brushed hers, not long, but enough to make her heart skip a beat. "I'm scared I'll mess up and look silly," she whispered. Hai tilted his head, his voice warm and low. "No one's going to laugh at you. And even if they do, just look at me. I'll be right here." Those words made her lift her eyes. And Hai's gaze was so warm she had to look away to hide the trembling in her chest. When their food arrived, Hai cut a small piece of steak and placed it on Ivy's plate. "Try this, princess." Ivy chewed and beamed. "It's so yummy, Uncle Hai." Watching them, Tieu San felt an unfamiliar but comforting warmth spread through her. No one had ever brought her somewhere this nice. No one had ever patiently taught her every little thing. No one had ever cared for her and her child with such gentle attention. When Tieu San tried using her utensils just as Hai had shown her, he glanced at her and smiled. "You're doing great." Just a simple compliment, yet her cheeks flushed hotter than the wine in her glass. The meal continued with light-hearted conversation. Ivy chatted endlessly, Hai listened with unwavering patience, and Tieu San, perhaps for the first time in a very long while, felt like she was living a peaceful, happy family afternoon. And in that moment, she realized. Happiness isn't always something grand. Sometimes, it's just someone teaching you how to hold a fork. Your child laughing freely. And a person sitting across from you who makes you feel safe. After the warm, laughter-filled lunch, Hai led the mother and daughter down to the parking lot. Ivy walked while holding Hai's hand, still chattering non-stop about every single game she played in the play area, as if she was afraid that if she didn't say it now, she would forget it by tomorrow. Hai nodded patiently at every sentence, occasionally reaching out to gently pat her head. Tieu San walked a little behind them, watching the scene with a heart so soft it felt unreal. She had never imagined there would come a day when her daughter could be this close, this joyful, with another man. On the way home, Ivy leaned against Hai's shoulder in the back seat, exhaustion finally catching up after all the excitement. Her eyelids drooped, her head bobbing sleepily. Hai glanced back, then reached over to adjust her seatbelt and place the little pillow behind her so she could sit more comfortably. "You always notice every little thing," Tieu San said softly, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Hai responded with a gentle look. "Because I want you both to always feel safe." That simple line made Tieu San's heart tighten, it was so sincere it didn't need any further explanation. When the car stopped in front of the house, Ivy had woken a little. She rubbed her eyes, looked around, then wrapped her arms around Hai's neck as he carried her out. "Uncle Hai, are you leaving already?" Her voice was soft and tinged with sadness. Hai smiled, lifting her slightly higher. "I need to go home and finish some work. But I'll come visit you tomorrow or the day after, okay?" Ivy shook her head vigorously, her messy hair flying everywhere. "No. I want you to stay here with us." Both Tieu San and Hai burst into laughter. Hai kissed Ivy's forehead, a gesture so natural it made Tieu San freeze for a second. "Little princess, I want to stay too, but what if your mom doesn't let me?" he teased gently. Ivy immediately turned to Tieu San. "Mommy, let Uncle Hai stay please." Tieu San's face flushed instantly. She pulled Ivy into her arms. "What kind of little girl talks like this, Hai laughed softly, his eyes warm, and holding something deeper. He bent down, set Ivy back on her feet, and ruffled her hair. "Uncle's going now. Be good at home and listen to your mom." Ivy grabbed his hand tightly, lips pouting. "Uncle Hai, come tomorrow, okay? I miss you already." Her innocent words made Hai pause. He looked at Tieu San, an unspoken message passing between them. "I'll come," he said, his voice steady and certain. Before turning away, he looked at Tieu San slowly, deliberately. "Today, I was really happy. Thank you for letting me be with you too." Tieu San didn't know what to say. She managed a soft smile, gentle like the evening light. "Thank you too, for everything." Hai gave a small nod before finally walking toward his car. Ivy waved enthusiastically until his car disappeared from sight. When the gate closed, Tieu San carried Ivy inside, but her heart was still beating to the rhythm of that goodbye. Soft, warm, and filled with emotions growing quietly, day by day.
Hello mọi người, rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video hôm nay của mình. Cảm ơn mọi người đã lắng nghe hết câu chuyện mà mình chia sẻ và ủng hộ kênh của mình. Nếu mà mọi người yêu thích những câu chuyện mình chia sẻ thì nhớ bấm nút theo dõi để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất và để lại cho mình một số bình luận ở dưới phần bình luận để mình có động lực làm nhiều video hơn. và nhớ chia sẻ kênh của mình đến mọi người để mọi người cùng biết và lắng nghe những câu chuyện mà mình chia sẻ nha. Và câu chuyện hôm nay mình kể về người mẹ đơn thân Tiểu San. Và sau khi bình cùng khó khăn thì Tiểu San và Hải vẫn đồng hành với nhau và cùng nhau vượt qua tất cả để có cuộc sống bình yên. Liệu rằng Tiểu San sẽ phải đối mặt với khó khăn gì phía trước thì mời mọi người cùng đón xem ở những video tiếp theo. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở video tiếp theo nhé.